Good afternoon, anti-novelists, Lilligans, curious onlookers, and friends. Welcome back to this episode of Zettelkasten for Fiction, where imagination finds order. So, I've been getting a couple of questions about how you go from research to corralling that research to writing. So let me break it down and let's look at a specific example from my novel, The Conjuring Stitch, which I have set aside during its developmental edit in order to get my book, Zettelkasten for Fiction, done for you. So, in my guru Scott Scheper's book, Anti-Net Zettelkasten, where he takes you through all things Zettelkasten, this is a well-loved, well-worn copy. Let's see what he says. If I can find this quote that I so carefully lined out for you. Don't you hate it when that happens? Seriously. I have all of these notes labeled quote, quote, quote. None of them are the one I want. Hold on. Here we go. Workflow, page 205. When writing a manuscript with your anti-net, you have your note cards to guide you, and it begins to feel like a true partnership. I've experienced this myself by writing this book. The notes from my anti-net have already gone through development in two ways: short-term development through writing by hand, and long-term development by way of engaging new supporting evidence and further calcifications of an idea, backed up by more examples, reflections, reformulations, and excerpts. So, that's all fine and good for nonfiction when you're writing a book about the Zettelkasten, but how does that translate into fiction? That seems to be the most common question that I get is, how does all this translate into fiction? Well, let's take a look. I'm opening my index, which, as you know, my index lives in a Happy Planner big size disc binder rather than in an A to Z note card system. That's the only way that I depart from Scott Scheper's guidance. I like my index to be lots of big pages of each letter of the alphabet so I can see more information at a glance. If I go to A, you will notice I have an entry. Awkward Squad, World War I, 7120.3/1. So I already know, because I've been doing this for over a year, that 7120 is my main male character, Marshall Branch. So I already know at a glance that this has to do with him. If I go over, because I tell myself right here, World War I. So let's go to W and see what's there. If I go over to my W tab, oof, check it out. Marshall Branch, Awkward Squad, 7120.3/1. So any place that I would look for this particular information is referenced in my index, so that if I think Awkward Squad, if I think World War I, if I think Branch, that item gets indexed in each of those places with those keyword letters. So then let's see what's on the card, 7120.3/1. Awkward Squad, and it's swiped with blue. That tells me it's relevant to Branch. Then, from my research, I have some notes. On April 6th of 1917, the Awkward Squad assembled at Main Street in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. It was headed up by Robert Everest, and it was basically basic training. See the Daily Oklahoman photo. It was largely voluntary, comprised of about 85,000 volunteers. So these are the details that I extracted from the research that I was doing. So if I wanted to find out more about this, I would hightail it over to my bib cards in my bibliography box, and I would look up the Awkward Squad, and I would go back to this primary resource to see where I got it from. But we're not going to do that because we're interested in the fiction. Look at the notes that I've made below. Remember, I argue that The top part of your card should be the critical reference information. The bottom part of the card should be relevance, notes to yourself, reasons why you think this will be important in your story, etc. So I've got 1, details of the war theater, and 2, Branch at the attack, parentheses, March, means he comes home early. As I've stated before, often you may find that the notes to yourself in your note cards are kind of cryptic and anybody else would look at it and have no idea what it means, but you are the author of your story. I know what these details mean. These send me right back in my mind to those parts of my story, and I can go look at them. So, knowing that this group of young men assembled, and that was the Oklahomans' way of getting on board and supporting the war effort, let's look at my story and see what I did with that. This is chapter 14, and it's just labeled World War I. The opening part of the chapter literally is a quote from the historical register about the Awkward Squad, under which my main male character, Marshall Branch, trained. So I've just summarized those details. Actually, I didn't summarize them. This is a direct quote, which is why it's credited to the historical register. But those details tell my reader at the beginning of the chapter, this is the context for this chapter. So you know you're being dropped into World War I when you get here. So let me just read you a few details. Not a long passage, a pretty short one. Labeled. All of my chapters begin with an opening quote. Quote, "Your spirit is the true shield." Morahei Yeshiba. 1918, France. The dugout was a wet mud pit. The constant pattering of rain and the aching cold that came with it guaranteed there was no comfort. It was after midnight, and Marshall Branch was trying to focus his mind's eye on his consciousness as his fighter's heart pumped the blood right out of him. Just minutes earlier, he'd been trying to make sense of the onslaught of enemy fire as he watched his commander briefing the men that mortar after mortar was just not detonating. In fact, more than half of the artillery shells deployed failed to detonate. What was supposed to be a crushing blow to the Germans turned out to be a bloodbath for the Allies. They had assumed that their initiative would wipe out German troops and lay waste to their defenses. But the enemy proved to thrive in the chalk trenches they'd fortified. They were fully prepared to move underground when Allied fire began and simply waited it out. So, that gives you another key piece of what was happening during the war. Now, I didn't show you those cards, but those details are excerpted directly out of historical accounts of the events of World War I. So you can see I used Branch's details, rather the details of his backstory, from the historical register and the Oklahoman photo, and then I filled that in to build that bit of chapter with the actual details, which came directly from the accounts and the breakdown in the debrief of the war, that mortar after mortar failed to go off. They just didn't detonate, and the men were just basically left there to be absolutely obliterated. So that's one quick way of how I took the information in the cards in the same way that our guru, Scott Scheper, tells us to do when we're writing nonfiction, but I wove them into bits of my story using how Branch trained and then what he witnessed when he was there during the war. So I'm going to leave you here for today. We're going to pick this up again tomorrow and keep looking at how you go from research to ideas to cards and then into the actual fiction writing. So, as always, thank you so much to my new subscribers. I thank each and every one of you, and continue following along because we are almost at 24,000 words. I'm writing slowly right now because I have other commitments, but I'm still getting the work done. And I still intend to have this book ready for pre-release by September 21. Woohoo! So again, thank you all. I will see you tomorrow.